Welcome to AUSA's Army Matters podcast, focusing on what's important to the total Army community. We bring vital Army conversations and interviews on issues relevant to soldiers, military families, and all of you amazing Army supporters. Rotating each week, our show includes Soldier Today, Army Real Talk, Family Voices, and Thought Leaders. Let's tune into the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly Dailey, and welcome to AUSA's Army Matters Family Voices podcast. In line with AUSA's overall mission to educate, inform, and connect, the AUSA Family Readiness Directorate is dedicated to providing all our Army families with the tools, resources, and connections needed to manage the ins and outs of their military life journey. In support of our mission, I am so excited and happy to welcome Ms. Sally Ann Zoll. Ms. Zoll is the Chief Executive Officer for United Through Reading, and I can also tell you that Sally is all too familiar with our military lifestyle. Welcome, Sally. We are so happy that you are joining us today, and I am looking forward to our discussion because I always enjoy our time together and always enjoy talking with you.
Thank you, Holly, and I always enjoy my time talking to you as well, so I'm just really honored to be here. And as an aside, congratulations on a wonderful AUSA annual meeting. It was so good to be back together. And you're right, you provided tools, resources, and connections for all of us at that meeting. So it was great. And the family forums you put together were really terrific. So a big hooah to you and your team.
Thank you so much, Sally. That really means a lot. And I enjoyed seeing you there.
You were a rock star. I couldn't get close.
You're too kind. To get started, Sally, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm an educator at heart. I taught elementary school, special education. I was a high school administrator, an adjunct professor at the university. I helped start and grow 2 education software companies. So that's my education background. My husband is a Vietnam veteran and a retired Army reservist. My father and father-in-law served in the Army. Our son is currently an Army reservist, having served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think you'd say that education and military are just part of my DNA.
Well, thank you, Sally, and thank you to your whole family for their service. So being a military spouse, a military mom, an educator, and very passionate about your profession, how did you come about connecting with United Through Reading? And now as the CEO, why is it important to you to carry on the United Through Reading mission?
Well, thank you for asking, because it really is quite a unique story. We're an Army family, but we live in a Navy town in Coronado, California. And we did not know about United Reading for a very long time because it was focused on the Navy. Our son was an Army reservist in 2003 when he was called up to active duty for the invasion of Iraq. He was the commander of a transportation company, and he had 72 hours to get his reserve troops from 4 states together and to get their equipment shipped to Iraq. And it was, as you know, a very stressful time for the entire family. His son was 18 months old, and I said to his wife, you should record Corey reading a book before he leaves, not knowing anything about United Through Reading. And she said, that's a great idea. Corey came home at midnight the night before he was to leave, and Janine said, sit down, I'm going to record you reading a book. And he said, what, are you nuts? I don't have time to do that. I've got all these things that we have to do. And she said, sit down and read a book. So he read 5 Dr. Seuss books. They were on a big VHS cassette tape. And Corey was gone for 14 months. He didn't get to come home for any kind of leave. So 14 months is a very long time in the life of an 18-month-old child. And Ethan watched those videos religiously every single day. And when Corey came home, it was midnight at the San Diego airport. Ethan saw him and went running, arms wide open, screaming, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. All the other children who were there were hiding behind parents and grandparents, not knowing who these people were who had been gone for so long. But Ethan recognized his daddy. And at the time, Holly, I have to be honest, we didn't really know or understand why. We were just thrilled that he felt like Corey had never been gone and that Corey had been part of his life. Let's fast forward from 2003 to 2006. And I was approached by a board member of United Through Reading who said that the founder was going to retire and that they were looking for a new CEO. And he explained to me what United Through Reading did. And I said, well, that's exactly what we did without the organization, but that's exactly what we did. And he said, well, what we know about all the people who have used United Through Reading is that the connection remains very strong and the children remain connected to their parent while they're away. And that's exactly what happened with our son and our grandson. So I guess I would say I came to United Through Reading. It was more than a God wink. It was definitely a big nudge. Having experienced what we experienced outside of the organization and understanding the power that it had personally to our family, I couldn't turn away from the opportunity to be able to provide this service to our service members to video record reading books and keeping those books at home during separation. So that's how I came to United Through Reading, and because of the power that it had and the powerful effect, the positive impact that it had on our family, that's what makes me so passionate about the work that we do. We've served over 2.5 million military family members since 1989, and the beat goes on, and so do I.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Sally, and reinforcing and seeing firsthand how that connection is made from the parent to the child, in this case, Corey and Ethan. Amazing. So you were talking about the connection through reading a book. So inquiring minds want to know, including myself, how does United Through Reading choose the books that it recommends or curates?
Well, I love it that inquiring minds want to know. That's awesome. Choosing the books is really important to us, and we have taken that very seriously from the beginning, because there are a lot of books out there for children. Not all of them are necessarily good literature or necessarily written well or necessarily tell a story that might be appropriate for our children. So we work with educators and librarians to select books that are classics, that are written well, and books that feature diversity in our authors, in illustrations, in character and culture. We want to reflect the diversity of our military community, and you can go onto our website, for example, and see the collections that we have of books. Also, we're really interested in books that speak to events that a service member might miss. For example, you're away on training and your daughter's learning to ride a bike. And so we might recommend that you read Duck on a Bike with her. If your child is 5 or 6 and you know that he or she is starting to lose teeth, we have books about going to the dentist for the first time. And for older children, we recommend chapter books. Harry Potter is still very, very big in terms of reading just a chapter at a time to your children through United Through Reading. And finally, in the summer, recognizing the summer slide, and that's a term where students' academic levels will actually slide if they aren't actively engaged in learning, we feature STEM books to stem the summer slide. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics books. And obviously they're not textbooks, but they are children's books that talk about science and talk about math and learning to be an engineer and computers and technology. So thank you for that question, because curating and selecting the books is really a very important part of what we do.
Thank you, Sally, for explaining that and giving us some examples. That's wonderful that our families have a diversity of books to select from. And we're talking about connecting the parent and child through reading because they're separated. And we know that our military families go through a lot of separation. And when we say that, when we talk about separation, many of us automatically think about deployments, right? So how does United Through Reading also connect families during times apart aside from deployment?
That's a great question. And you're exactly right. I think the majority of the population thinks our military is only separated when they are deployed. And of course, those of us in the military know that there are far more separations than just deployment. I have friends who, and Holly, you'll appreciate this, I have friends who have spouses who are currently at the Pentagon, and they say that their spouse is deployed to the Pentagon because their spouse leaves at 3 in the morning to go to work and comes home at 11 at night. So it feels like a deployment. But mandatory training, our military has training exercises all the time. So they may be stationed at home, but they may have to leave for 3 or 4 weeks. And you know that that's disruptive. For our reservists, they have drill weekends, 1 weekend a month. And sometimes they have more than that. They have 2 weeks active training every year. So there are so many different ways that our military families are separated. We have a lot of families that are doing what's called geobadging. And if you've been stationed in one community for 3 or 4 years, which would be a wonderful thing if you were able to stay there that long, and suddenly your spouse is being moved across the country, you may, as a family, decide to stay where you are to support your children's education, for example. You may have children who are getting ready to graduate from high school, or you may have children that have special needs and they're in a really good place in the school that they're in. You may decide as a family that it's the best thing for the group to have the service member go and be by him or herself and geobatch it, as we call it, to be separated. So many reasons why our military is separated. And then, of course, our National Guard, they can be called up at a moment's notice, and we have seen that in the past 2 years extensively because of COVID and the support that they provided there, because of the civil unrest that we've been experiencing recently. It just is really showing us up front and personal how our Guard is called up and they leave tomorrow, and they may be gone 2 days or they may be gone 2 months, depending on the mission that they've been given in our country. So we participate in yellow ribbon events across the country to share the power of reading with our Guard families and understand that they also are separated from their families, even though they don't deploy.
Well, thanks, Sally. I know personally that it's best to record all year round so that you have those recordings ready and you can share them, because our kiddos grow up all too fast. So to our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.
Have you purchased your AUSA swag yet? Be proud to show your support for AUSA, which in turn shows your support for the U.S. Army and our soldiers. Check out all AUSA swag at shop.ausa.org.
So we are back with Miss Sally Zoll from United Through Reading. And Sally, I wanted to start off with this question. Continuing the United Through Reading dedication, right, to our military families. This year, United Through Reading released a white paper called Reading and Resiliency, Making Literacy a Military Community Priority. Sally, would you mind telling our listeners more about the purpose of this white paper?
Again, thank you for asking. We are just so pleased with the white paper. We had a young graduate student who is particularly passionate about military and literacy, who helped write this paper with us and was able to dig into all the research surrounding reasons why literacy should be a military community priority. What we're finding, Holly, and you know this in your position at AUSA, that when you're in a position where you can speak with our military families, you are able to share knowledge and provide resources that you might not otherwise be able to do. And that's what we're finding at United Through Reading, that because of our position in working with military families in our program, we have the added responsibility, I guess you would say, and the opportunity to share our knowledge about the importance of reading and literacy in the home. We just have this perfect opportunity to educate our families on the power of reading. And of course, when we have the research to back up that conversation, as you will find in the white paper, it really makes our position even more powerful and impactful to the family in understanding the importance of literacy and books in the home.
We have all seen the importance of educational development, especially because of the impacts of COVID-19, which has shown how critical literacy is as a building block for educational development. Sally, can you tell us and our listeners, what can we do at home to strengthen these skills with our children?
Oh, gosh, I get asked that question a lot, and I think it's really not difficult. I think we just need to be aware. We need to model reading in the home. We need to have reading materials in the home. We need to have books, magazines, papers. And that's one thing that United Through Reading really focuses on, is getting these books in the home. So not only do we provide the opportunity for service members to be video recorded reading a book and get it video sent home, but we also send the book home at no charge to the families, because we recognize the importance of books in homes. And there's a tremendous amount of research that says the more books in a home, the greater educational opportunities that a child will have. And with that, I want to point out that we not forget the value of graphic novels. As an educator, I would see children struggle to read. The words alone just didn't do it for them. But with the addition of graphics, back in the day, that was a comic book. Graphic novels are much more interesting and prolific now than they used to be. But with the addition of graphics, the words can come alive, and a reluctant reader suddenly is going to understand the magic of stories. So it's those kinds of things having in the home that are going to really create building blocks for our families and literacy. And create a routine. just make it a routine that, we used to read a book after a child had a nap or before they go to bed. Make it a routine that the entire family, perhaps after dinner, says, okay, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but it has to be an important little deal. 15 minutes where everybody gets a book and they read, or we all read a book together, or we all get out Shel Silverstein's book of poetry and we all choose a poem to read. But create a routine, and then United Through Reading can help extend that routine. So if a service member is away from home, you can still have that routine because you've got the United Through Reading videos to continue that. And then finally, with United Through Reading, we have an app. So I would encourage everybody to download that app, whether you're active duty or reservist or a veteran. Download the app, and we have recording challenges that are going on this holiday season. So you can record with your family and have an opportunity to win some fun literacy prizes as well. With that, I'd just say read, everybody read.
Great. Thank you for sharing those with us, Sally. We really appreciate it. I know firsthand how valuable making those bonds and routines at home and how that comes into play as our children grow up, especially when they're a military family and they're transitioning and they're moving from school to school, how important those skills are. So thanks for sharing all those so we know what we can do at home to strengthen all those skills. So, Sally, I always cherish my time talking with you. And before we wrap up today's podcast, would you like to provide any final thoughts to our listeners?
Well, Holly, I always cherish my time talking with you, too, and it's never long enough. Thanks for the opportunity to share our mission and the opportunity to share the word, to get the word out about United Through Reading to our military families. I do want to point out one more thing, and we get asked this question a lot. We have the ability to communicate far more regularly with our loved ones who are serving our country now than we ever have in the past. We have FaceTime and we have Skype and we have Zoom and so many various forms of real-time communication, which is a far cry from numbered letters or the numbered cassette tapes that those of us are old enough to remember and how we shared and communicated with our loved ones. So we have those opportunities today that we've never had before. But I just want people to remember that they aren't always best for children. The connection can be spotty, it can drop off. Time zone differences, of course, make it difficult sometimes to connect with children. But what United Through Reading does is repeatable. We purposely make sure that what we do is recorded for perpetuity so that children can watch mommy or daddy whenever they need mommy or daddy. We call it mommy or daddy on demand. So while we're really thrilled that communication continues to improve during separations for our families, don't forget that the needs of our kiddos are really different, and that United Through Reading is just the perfect way to keep them connected to their favorite adults when they need to be connected.
I love the mommy and daddy on demand.
I know. I love it too.
Well, our time has come to an end to close this episode of Family Voices podcast. Sally, all of us here at AUSA would like to thank you for being a military spouse and mother, and for continuing to keep our military families a priority and connected. I have experienced and seen how United Through Reading strengthened our military family bonds, no matter how far apart we are or how far we are from each other. Still today, the Dailey family reads and records books with United Through Reading. Truly enjoy and cherish our times doing that. If you would like to learn more about United Through Reading and the various resources, tools, and activities, you can go to their website, unitedthroughreading.org, or go to @UTR4Military, and that's UTR, the number 4, MILITARY. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thank you for joining us. No matter where you are or what you are doing on your journey, let us be your eyes, ears, and voice. We are here for you.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Army Matters podcast on iTunes and everywhere podcasts are found. The Army Matters podcast series is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army Connected. Visit us at AUSA.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission to educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and our supporters of a strong national defense. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. Have a great Army Day. Hua.